Their coach, I mean, their coach is somebody who I like. I think Anero actually is one of the better coaches, but I just feel like he's in a shit situation, right? And I feel like the coaching staff is just like people that he knew from OCE because when he was in OPL, he had a lot of like relationships there.
Tainted Minds.
That's how it feels to me. Yeah, like he was in Tainted Minds. And yeah, I mean, like, why do they only import OCE coaches? You know, it's like, oh shit, maybe it's because he went to OCE. They import a lot more OCE coaches, but I don't feel like OCE coaches would be like OCE always had the worst macro out of like any team, period. So I don't know about, or like any region, period. Sorry, I said team, but yeah, like I don't know why importing from there would be good in terms of like teaching your players the game. It's like, I mean, I don't know if OPL was even better than like our academy system. Like, it's weird to have like players that weren't able to make good decisions in game, then be teaching your players how to make good decisions in game. All right, what's up, boys? Today I woke up and I looked on Twitter, and the head coach of Golden Guardians apparently had exception to one of the statements that I made in my recent episode of Face Check. If you didn't watch the episode, the episode was about all of LCS, but one of the things that we focused on was Golden Guardians as an org, and is this org toxic for the league. I mean, I had a bunch of things that I went into. I don't think that Golden Guardians' approach to competing in LCS is actually a competitive approach. I think that the way that they handle themselves is, kind of harmful to the league. The fact that they aren't able to put together rosters to actually compete, and they hide under this guise of, oh, it's just a developmental roster, which means that we can essentially just not compete for a period of time. And for me, I mean, this isn't like the first time Golden Guardians has done this. They got lucky last year with the fact they actually developed a good roster. They actually just had good players. They picked up Closer, who ended up performing really well in LCS. FBI became a beast. So the team obviously performed expectations, but you can tell that this team isn't actually focused on developing these players, because what did they do as soon as that roster did well and had some value? Boom, they just sell it all to 100 Thieves, make some money, and yeah, now they just have another developmental roster in the form of Niles, Iconic, Blaze, Olive, Stixay, and Newbie. So I have a bunch of issues with just the way they do things. I think that the way that they've, ran their organization is actually harming these players' potential careers. I know that Niles was somebody that was scouted super heavily, even by Europe, even by regional leagues. This is somebody who has the mechanical talent. He fits into that category of like the no-brain mechanical players that could, with some coaching, end up being great. But yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of issues with how the org is run, and one thing that I said that Anero had exception with is the fact that I said that there could be potential nepotism in terms of the coaching staff being signed. Now, this isn't something that I said like cut and dry. I didn't say, hey, this is the only reason that happened. Like, these people are only picked up because of nepotism. I cited something that I know personally, which is that Anero was a former coach in OC. He had a personal relationship with Choo Choos, and now Golden Guardians has a full OCE coaching staff. So I said, hey, this could be an issue. Maybe the fact that he is friends with these people, or he knows these people from his time in OCE, could have impacted his decisions to pick them up. Obviously, Anero had exception to that. Obviously, there's no getting around this. These tweets are all aimed at me. I mean, honestly, just fucking man up and just tag me if you're going to be talking about me the whole time. But he just like sarcastically tweets, Anero hires his friends. 2,717 retweets, 818,276 favorites. And then he says that it's such a disrespectful narrative to the coaches I get to work with daily, that are 1,000% better than they ever get any credit for. Number one for this is like, I don't know how people expect us to judge coaches, but for me, when you're judging a coach, you obviously can't do it perfectly. You can never know what's going on behind the scenes, but the way that you're going to approach the general discussion is you're going to look at players and their progression and attribute like whatever progression that they have to, potentially being, well coached. So you look at the player's base level, you see where they get to in a short period of time, and then you kind of see if there's anything that changed with their intent in game. So if players start managing waves completely differently, maybe they just got better, maybe they figured it out himself, but one thing that you do as somebody who tries to analyze league is you try to see if there's anything that they're being taught, anything that they're changing week to week that's like very demonstrable. Pretty much Anero says it's such a disrespectful narrative to the coaches I get to work with daily that are 100% better than they ever get credit for. I mean, the team finished 3-15, saw very limited progression. I mean, even by the end of the split, you see like Niles literally doing Hashinshin TPs in LCS, where it's like, okay, I mean, maybe the coaches are doing great and the players just suck, but you know, in that world, I think that the scouting was bad. Anyways, I asked, so how are we supposed to judge coaches? If not by the progression of decision-making of players over the course of the split. Mind you, I responded to this like hours after, or maybe like an hour after. Nick Smith says, this is the coach of Golden Guardians if you don't know, but he says, you can, that's perfectly fine. I've been open that I'm okay with being flamed as a coach for the team doing poorly over the players. This is literally an exception, an expectation for competition. I posted about them being hired because they're friends. So the whole thing that I postulated was that this could actually be a reason for these hires. Generally speaking, if you look at OCE is not a region that has like really good macro, really good laning phases, and you'd think would create really good coaches. I mean, the best ways to become a coach are either to be a really good player yourself, like I mean that you're one of the top players in your region in like a major region, or you're like a freak player, like, you know, maybe somebody like Levi from Vietnam, where it looks like you actually have like a higher level of understanding of one of the roles or of the game than other people that are around you. Or you're just somebody who's subjected to a great environment. Like, let's say you were in G2. You might not have had great game knowledge, but I bet you if you're sitting in a room with Reckless and Caps and Yankos and Wonder, and they're all discussing things, Mickey, they're all discussing things about the game, you're going to learn something, and you're going to be able to, you know, take that in and be able to, you know, help other players that might not be able to understand concepts on that high level. When you look at OCE normally does terribly in competition. I don't think they've ever qualified actually into the group stage of a world championship, and this is like 11 years in. And even in international wildcard tournaments, they weren't like one of the top minor regions. So there's no way to really say that like OCE would be a good place to look to hire coaches. Normally you'd look at Europe, you'd look at people that have maybe even coached within the regional league that have worked their way up there. But just taking straight players from OCE and then making them coaches in NA doesn't seem like it would be like a good thing, just based off the strength of the region and, you know, how the region attempts to play League of Legends. So I just wanted to look here. So I looked at the coaching staff. Currently, all 4 people that are listed as coach were either a coach at OCE, an assistant coach. Their assistant coach, Chuchu's, was a player on the same team that Anero coached while he was in OCE. And then Spooks and Swiper were both top tier players within the region for a while. And yeah, they had no prior coaching experience before they joined Golden Guardians. At least not that I know, nothing of note at least. And yeah, all of them are now coaches for Golden Guardians. So, yeah, we'll just continue reading through this. Did you want to misconstrue this as me complaining about anything else or what? I think it's perfectly fine to be flamed for literally anything else. That's always the expectation of competition. I just always hit back on the nepotism angle against me because I despise it. Okay, so I don't understand why this is something that's that crazy to understand. I mean, he even goes on later in this tweet. I mean, we can keep on reading it, but he even goes later in this tweet to say, the only people I made relationships with were Choo-Choo's, Fasvi, and Pradith. Well, Choo-Choo's was one of the people on the coaching staff. Like, Choo-Choo's is literally the first person that you picked up. So, like, the fact that these people are getting more of a look at by Golden Guardians because, you know, he has a personal relationship with them, or maybe Choo-Choo's is putting in a good word for these people, I think that that's a completely reasonable thing to be assumed. All right, so we'll continue. I do so much to encourage looking at people from anywhere for coaching and getting them opportunities to do interviews. I encourage looking for anyone outside of people I recommend. I just hate it ever being implied that coaches I work with get their job because of any nepotism. That is quite literally my only fucking complaint. I've been public about wanting everything directed towards me and not players who will always just be doing their best with the opportunity they've been giving. I mean, I'm essentially doing that. I'm saying like, hey, I think the selection of coaches that you made was poor. Like, I think that these coaches might have been influenced by your previous relationships, and it's not actually the best fit for the job. Like, generally speaking, if you have a bunch of inexperienced players, you don't want inexperienced coaches coaching inexperienced players. You want coaches that are like, because coaches in general are much cheaper than players. That's another thing that you should be considering in this like whole argument here, is that coaches in general are way cheaper. Like, the best coach is going to cost way less than the best player. Like, not even close, not even like a fifth of as much. So if you don't have money to buy good players, why not invest into coaches? We've seen a ton of coaches that have came over this year from Europe that all ended up being, from what we can see, pretty good. I mean, you have people like Cold, you have people like Max Waldo, who obviously spent time in Korea with LS. You have Vigar V2, you have Mithy. Like, not saying that Golden Guardians can afford these people, but I'm just saying that there's people out there that are coming to NA, and none of these teams are employing a full OC coaching staff, right? Like, this is something that's very specific to Golden Guardians. And if you don't even have money to like buy coaches, and I'm talking like some of these, like, you're gonna tell me Max Waldo's making more than like 150K a year? Like, I don't think he's even making that, but like even if he's making that, like, if you're not willing to even spend that on a coach, where like other teams are spending $3 million for one player, if you can't even do 150, then like, what is Golden Guardians even doing in the league at this point? How are they ever going to be competitive? Like, they're literally just sitting here being a free win for everyone, and they don't even actually develop their players. Like, that was something that I mentioned earlier, but like, when you think of a developmental roster, which is what Golden Guardians has literally had for years, right? When they came in 2018, it was a developmental roster with High being the guy that was going to like teach all the players. And then you had like Matt, you had Deathly, you had Lorlo, and what happened? After that year, they just kicked them all. So it's like, to me, I don't understand what the idea of like developmental roster is when you don't actually develop them. Like, you get rid of them after like 1 or 2 years max, you know? Maybe some of those guys stayed for the next year, but yeah, I mean, you understand the general point is that every time they develop a roster, they just sell the players at the end of the year. So like, I don't feel like that's actually developing a roster. That's just getting a bad roster just so you can play in LCS, trying to do the best you can, and then when their contract is up, boom, they're out of there. Yeah, like, they're not actually spending, like, they're not setting their players up for success, because you have people that are just learning how to coach with players that are just learning how to play LCS. It's like doomed from the start. Anyways, he said, this is quite literally my only fucking complaint. I've been public about wanting everything directed at me and not the players, who will always just be doing their best with the opportunity they've been given. Like, man, I don't hate you or your podcast. I know we're going to get flamed, and it's important that you guys talk about bad performances. The specific thing is just really annoying insinuation that I feel is unnecessary disrespect towards the coaches I work with who earned their spot over other people that have been interviewed and weren't just handed it for free by management. Like, once again, I feel like that is just an over-characterization. Like, that is a characterization that's like way too far gone on what I actually said. I didn't say like these coaches are literally coming over and they just know an arrow, and that's the only reason they're getting their fucking job. I'm saying that it could have influenced their ability to have been picked up. The fact that, you know, Choo-Choo's has known these guys for years. And one thing you have to also consider in this whole debate is the environment that OCE has. Now, I've been to OCE. I've played with all the players. Like, I actually have like decent connections. I mean, when I went to OCE, I was dating one of Anero's closest friends, Fasfi, who he says was like one of the people that he developed a relationship with within that region. So I know the region. I understand how the region is, and it's very, very tight knit. That's something that you definitely can't take away from it. All of the people know each other. All the people call each other by first name basis. Like, you get into high elo and every single person knows every single other person by first name basis. It's extremely tight knit. So the ability of Choo-Choo's to then pick up people that, you know, maybe he never played with but were on opposing teams, like, it seems like, yeah, that would be something that could happen when you have a really close-knit community like OCE. Anyways, yeah, I respond. I said, sure, let's get into this. OCE is historically some of the worst decision-making lane phases out of all the regions of the world. You coached in OCA, made a ton of relationships, and suddenly the org you coach for has the most OCE coaches, imports the most OCE coaches. He responds, he says, I coached there for about 4 weeks total and really only made a relationship with Choo-Choo's, Fasty, and Pradith. The rest were very surface level and I didn't interact much. I didn't speak with Spooks or Swiper on a friendship level until they joined the org. Yeah, so I mean, that's his take. I just think that like these types of things have to be considered. When you're having a discussion about why a team failed, I think that looking at the coaching staff is completely normal, especially when you're considering a developmental roster. I mean, one of the points that I made was that the players that they chose to develop, like their scouting seems really weird. Like if you're developing players, then why are you going for players that have 6+ years of competitive experience? Like, is Stixay supposed to be the one that's the leader of the team? Is he going to be the guy that's like very vocal, and he's going to be the one that's pulling them all together and, you know, making all the rookies understand how to play the game at an LCS level? Because that doesn't seem like the type of guy. I mean, we've seen content with Stixay for the last 6 years. You're telling me that that's the guy that's going to be like your out of game leader? I mean, I just don't see that in him. Maybe he is, but at the end of the day, this didn't work out. And I think that looking at all the different angles as to why it failed, outside of just the players not being the best, I think is reasonable. So yeah, I mean, overall, I just wanted to give my take and like all the information that I had that went into me, like, yeah, having that hypothetical that potentially these people on the coaching staff are getting hired because of the fact that they know the head coach more than anything else. I mean, look around the league, man. Golden Guardians has the only coach that's ever coached an OCE, and they have a full OCE coaching staff. Look around the league. I would bet that no other org even has like 50%. I don't even know if there's other OCE coaches in NALCS, but I would be really surprised if any other org had even 50% of the coaches that Golden Guardians has. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. My overall take, I think, is completely reasonable given all the context, given all the facts that we have here. And I just wanted to kind of give all of them to the community, because I keep on seeing people be like, oh, Dom, you're creating a false narrative. Number one, I didn't say that this was 100% true. I said that this is something that could be construed as nepotism. I didn't say, hey, this has to be this. And then people are like, no, but Anero said that it wasn't nepotism. Oh, great. So the guy who's in charge of doing it, the person that we're questioning about their decision making, that person now said, oh no, they were selected because of the merits of their ability. Okay, well shit. Then we can just say that they were bad coaches, right? Like the results showed for themselves, right? The coaches didn't do their job. The players didn't seem to develop. They got 3 wins out of 18 games in a weak league of LCS. Like, LCS was bad this year. This split was one of the worst splits in LCS in recent memory. So many new players came in. It was like one of the weakest splits we've had. They won 3 best of ones out of 18 games. So like, yeah, sure, we didn't see development in the players. The players were making the same mistakes from week 1 to week 6. Iconic was not able to play around Niles at all. Niles was dying at random times. We're seeing Shinshin TPs. So I think that the whole idea behind what's happening is fair. Yeah, like we can just judge them based off the merit of what they did. And from the outside, as far as we can judge coaches, the coaches didn't do their job in helping this team really develop. They didn't look much better from weeks 1 to week 6, right? Like week 1, their level of play might have even looked better than it did at week 6. So yeah, I mean, we can approach it from all these different things. But yeah, I am saying that this could have been a reason why these people were picked up, why this coaching staff was picked up, and just like the head coach telling me, oh, well, no, that's not actually the thing. What the fuck do you think he's going to say? You think he's going to be like, yeah, no, it is actually nepotism, Dom. Yeah, I actually picked up all these guys because they're my friends. I mean, we'll see, right? We'll see how Golden Guardians performs in summer. We'll see if they're able to actually compete and do well within LCS. We'll see the development of the players, and then we can judge whether this coaching staff was good or not. But yeah, I just wanted to make a video that kind of compiled all my thoughts on the matter, because like doing this in fucking 240 or whatever, however many characters you can use on Twitter nowadays, doing it in that type of like small constraints just doesn't seem like it will do my whole argument justice. So anyways, I'll just close out this video. Thank you guys for watching. This was just my thoughts on the whole situation that's been happening on Twitter, where I've been accused of creating false narratives and things like that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and you know, if this one does well, I'll do more of these in the future, where I just compile my entire thoughts on a subject and give reasoning as to how I came by having these opinions. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye. Last thing I want to comment on is this little action right here from Nick Smith, where he calls us losers after, you know, he said that he didn't dislike me or my podcast. Don't know how that happened, but you know, he called me losers to one of his friends, and all I would say is, like, I don't know if somebody who goes 3-15 in LCS, that's easily the worst team, comes in 10th place, expected, gets 10th place, should be calling anyone losers. It seems like you lose more than anyone else, my guy.